Okay, excellent. We have a question here from Adeeba in the UK. I'm a journalist with 12 years experience. I recently signed up for a distance learning course in Islamic banking in London and am now seriously thinking of a career change, but I'm totally new to the subject area. Number one, do I stand a chance of being employed by an Islamic financial institution? Number two, will you advise me to do an MA or an MSc in Islamic banking after finishing my distance learning course? And three, how can I capitalize on my Central Asian background and knowledge? So a lot of what we've already said applies to the first question, and the answer is certainly yes. What I've found is that instead of trying to, what we've actually found we have over 1,000 students at Ethica. We have actually over 1,200 students at Ethica, and this broad cross-section of practitioners and students, we've learned that people shouldn't try to make a complete 100% U-turn. So if you're a journalist, there may actually be a niche for you as a journalist with a Central Asian background who has knowledge of Islamic finance. I mean, how many people can call themselves experienced journalists in that part of the world, which is becoming increasingly important given its hydrocarbon advantage, and have practical Islamic finance product knowledge? I would say very, very few. So if you want to distinguish yourself, ultimately you'll be compared against your peers. So that's, I think, a real big advantage that you should leverage from your experience as a journalist.
I just want to follow up on that and just once again echo the same themes as Atif, in the sense that, I mean, maybe prior to this question we've been speaking more from a Islamic finance, from a banking perspective or financial institution perspective, but just as in conventional finance, you've got a whole set of attached career options, and amongst them is financial journalism, and this is something that's emerging as well, because Islamic finance is obviously it's undergoing, as it's growing, there are road shows taking place, there are publications involved, there are magazines, there are bodies that distribute newsletters. And I myself, I've just come from a roadshow in India literally a few days ago, and it was huge, a huge demand there. And I think this will only increase, and anyone who's got a prior experience in journalism would more than likely be able to find opportunities. I mean, Malaysia is an excellent place for this. I mean, a couple of individuals, I'm not going to mention the organization, but a couple of individuals were formerly workers. They formerly worked for Euromoney publications, and they went and set up their own company, which is now very significant within the Islamic finance news domain. And so likewise, there are plenty of opportunities out there without necessitating someone to literally make a career change from journalism into banking. Now, having said that, if that's something that interests you, then following on to your second question, there are advantages to formally doing a course. I don't know if Atif has anything to say about this.
Well, our experience has been that generally recruiters and banks want people with practical knowledge of Islamic finance, particularly the products. And while a master's or an MSc might be useful if you're younger, if you have 12 years of experience, you're probably not 20. So I think at the stage you're at, what banks are looking for is people with practical knowledge, and for that, unfortunately, the master's route is sometimes frustrating for people because they're learning a lot of theory from people who don't execute, from professors basically, who don't execute Islamic finance transactions for a living. So if you can find such a program where you get practical knowledge, that's great. But this has just been our experience.
I'd second that. I think there are quite a few programs emerging now, and maybe seeing that you're from the UK, there's quite a few degrees coming now. I mean, there's always been Durham, and now there's the University of Reading that's offering an MSc in Islamic banking and investment banking, which involves some time spent in Malaysia at INSEF. But it's another thing. I mean, obviously, in working in the industry, I myself didn't take a master's route or a formal academic route, and I have found when liaising with individuals who may have taken the academic route, and also being involved to some degree within the bank's internal recruitment when it comes to people coming on board, that what Atif said is correct, that the emphasis is on practical experience. And even if someone has done a master's or an MSc, they often needs to be some sort of demonstration whereby they can demonstrate they have practical experience, which is something I think most of these courses are recognizing, which is why often, for example, I mentioned INSEF in Malaysia. It's an institute that involves students as part of the MSc being placed in Islamic banks. Because for much of the time previous, what's been found is that a lot of the discussions are taking place at the broader theoretical level, which needs to be done because the Islamic finance direction is still being, there still needs to be direction defined. But at the same time, what's happening on the ground seems to be traveling a bit too fast for what's happening in the universities. And so there needs to be a coupling between academic knowledge and practical experience, and if you can't find a program like that, there are programs that exist which offer practical experience alongside knowledge.
Okay, Farzana from Melbourne, how are the educational programs in Islamic finance different from one country to another? There are a variety of programs from Malaysia and the UAE. Which certificates or educational background is needed to get into the Islamic finance industry? So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, AOFI is the leading standard-setting body. These are standards followed by scholars from Malaysia all the way to the U.S. and in between. So, the impetus should be to follow these standards at not just a banking level, but also at a training level. And one thing that you can do as a prospective student is to ensure that that your certificate or educational pursuit conforms to AOFI's latest Sharia standards. So whether it's in Malaysia or the UAE, what really matters is not the location, but the standard being followed. Next question is Hamad from Karachi. What do I need to know to work in the investment banking arm of an Islamic bank? Yusuf's bank actually has such an arm. And since he's actually in the investment banking department, who better to answer this than Yusuf?
I'm not formally in the investment banking department, but I do liaise with them. Well, I think if you've got investment banking experience prior to coming to an Islamic bank, then obviously that would help. Investment banking, just as a point of information, is actually a form of banking that is actually quite consistent with much of Islamic banking anyway. And so, for example, people who may have worked as analysts, for example, at investment banks, and been involved in general investment banking transactions, often have directly transferable skills to an Islamic banking context, apart from certain conditions that need to be stipulated that they will need to follow with regards to the Sharia when it comes to buying and selling equity, when it comes to taking stakes in companies.